The chamber of the Galactic Council stretched like a cathedral of stars, its domed ceiling flickering with constellations drawn from 1,000 civilizations. Representatives from across the spiral arms filled the tiers. Scaled diplomats in silver robes, insectoid chittering voices that echoed through translator fields. Aquatic delegates in sealed domes pulsing with liquid light. All eyes were fixed on the central dais, where the message from Earth had just ended. The human envoy had spoken only 2 words before the feed cut to static. "We're coming." A hush rippled through the chamber. Even the Kelorians, infamous for their shrieking laughter at war threats, sat frozen. It wasn't the words that terrified them. It was the tone. Flat, cold, absolute. Councillor Veidrak, a reptilian elder whose species had survived 5 empires, broke the silence. "Bravado, nothing more. Their fleets are fractured, their colonies vulnerable. Humanity postures because it knows annihilation is near." But not everyone agreed. Ambassador Shear of the Osari, translucent tendrils trembling, leaned toward her microphone. "You misunderstand. I have studied humans. They are not warning us. They are informing us. It means they have already begun." On the lower tier, Jalen Carter adjusted his collar. He was Earth's sole representative allowed in this chamber, a mid-level diplomat elevated only because the Council had demanded a token voice from humanity. He was 37, lean, sharp-eyed, his dark suit a poor match for the flowing regalia around him. Until now, his words had carried no weight. Suddenly, the chamber buzzed with whispers that returned again and again to him. "Mr. Carter," Councillor Veidrak hissed, "do you expect us to believe your people intend to strike back? After what happened at Epsilon Eridani? After the slaughter on Europa's colonies?" Jalen stood, his voice even. "You asked if humanity would kneel. You demanded tribute. You burned our outposts when we refused. Did you expect silence forever?" Laughter rang out from a cluster of Threxian delegates, their mandibles clacking like blades. "Yes. That is how it has always been." Shear's voice quivered with unease. "Perhaps not this time." The council chamber doors thundered open. An aide rushed forward, scales pale with panic. He dropped to his knees before the dais. "A report from the Rim. The Threxian fleet at Vega. Destroyed." "Impossible!" Veidrak snapped. "When? How?" The aide's voice cracked. 20 minutes ago." Gasps rolled through the chamber like a tidal wave. Jalen allowed himself the faintest smile. Humanity had been written off as fractured, weak, broken by alien raids. The Council didn't realize Earth had prepared in silence. "You wanted to test us," Jalen thought. "Now you'll see what happens when we stop holding back." In the Council's archives, humanity had been catalogued as a Tier 2 civilization, barely scraping the surface of faster-than-light travel. The assumption was that Earth's fleets were scattered patrol craft, no match for the galactic powers that controlled armadas spanning centuries of technological refinement. That assumption had just died with 300 Threxian warships. Councillor Veidrak's scales flared crimson in fury. "A trick! It must be. Tell us how, human. What weapon did you use?" Jalen met his gaze. "You'll find out soon enough. But I'll give you this. Earth doesn't bluff." Shear's tendrils coiled tightly. "If they can erase a fleet in minutes, then the balance of power... The balance of power is maintained by unity!" Veidrak roared. "This council cannot allow one primitive world to..." He stopped, voice strangled by the weight of silence. Every delegate's eyes were on Jalen now. Not because of what he had said, but because the council had always believed humans would plead for mercy, bargain for scraps, cling to survival like every other conquered species. Instead, their envoy stood calm, assured, as if this outcome had been inevitable. And perhaps it had been. Across the galaxy, while the council debated, Earth's war machines stared. For decades, Hidden beneath the guise of disunity and technological inferiority, humans had been developing weapons outside the Council's purview. Not elegant fleets bristling with ceremonial cannons, but brutal, functional craft designed for one purpose: decisive annihilation. Commanders had studied alien tactics, memorized their formations, broken down their overconfidence. Humanity had learned the hard way. Colonies burned, families lost, oceans turned red with slaughter. Now they fought with a doctrine the Council could not comprehend. Total war with no negotiation until victory. Jalen leaned forward, resting both hands on the table. His voice carried in the chamber with a gravity that silenced even the loudest dissenters. You wanted to make an example of us. You burned our children alive on Europa's ice. You laughed as our fleets scattered. You will not laugh again. Earth doesn't start wars, but we finish them. The chamber erupted. Shrieks, howls, furious demands. But beneath it all was something no one dared name aloud: fear. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council faced an enemy that had nothing left to lose and everything to prove. And humanity had just fired its opening shot. The Council chamber seethed like a nest of hornets. Translators strained to keep pace as dozens of alien languages thundered at once. Accusations, denials, and raw panic echoed under the vaulted dome. The report of the Threxian fleet's destruction was too detailed to dismiss, too fresh to disprove. And yet the Council clung to denial. "This is a fabrication!" barked Councillor Vedrak. His tail lashed, striking the polished floor hard enough to leave a crack. "The Threxian fleet cannot be destroyed in minutes! Impossible! Show us proof!" The aide trembled, activating a projection sphere. Above the dais, holographic wreckage spun slowly. Hulks of shattered Threxian dreadnoughts drifting across Vega's orbit. Flames bled into space. Escape pods, shredded and abandoned, told their own story. No tricks, no fabrication. A fleet that had ruled a quadrant was gone. A murmur spread. What weapon could do this? Who commanded it? Councillor Shear's translucent form quivered as she addressed the assembly. "This is not the work of desperation. This is coordination, planning. Humanity is not lashing out. It is executing a campaign." Vedrak bared his teeth. "Ridiculous! They lack the industry, the resources. Even their starships are primitive." Jalen Carter, who had remained seated while chaos tore through the chamber, finally spoke. His words cut through the noise like steel. "You've underestimated us before. That mistake cost the Threxians 300 warships. How many fleets do you want to lose before you believe me?" Far from the Council chamber, aboard the human flagship Indomitable, Admiral Amina Rourke surveyed the aftermath of Vega. She was 52, sharp as tempered glass, and carried the weight of every colony lost on her shoulders. On her command deck, screens glowed with tactical overlays. The wreckage of alien vessels still drifted beyond the viewport. Hersies quiero ofendeje. Pfizer's waited, elend, disciplined. Humanity's revenge had begun. "Status report," she ordered. "Minimal losses," her tactical chief replied. 2 destroyers damaged, but no fatalities. Enemy fleet annihilated in 22 minutes, Admiral. Rourke nodded once. Efficiency, not celebration. "Signal Earth Command. Phase 2 is green. Begin targeting their supply lines. Cut them where it hurts." A junior officer hesitated. "Ma'am, won't the Council retaliate?" "They already tried," Rourke said flatly. "Now they'll panic, and panic is the ally of victory." Her eyes hardened as she stared into the void. "They burned our children. They thought we'd crawl. Let them see what happens when humans rise instead." Back in the Council chamber, debates descended into threats. The Threxian representatives, mandibles clattering in rage, demanded a united strike against Earth. The Osari urged caution. Others, long silent minor species, watched with a glimmer of hope. For once, the predators who ruled them were afraid. "Councillors," Shear raised her voice. "We must understand. If humanity has weapons, we cannot counter. Escalating will not bring victory. It will bring collapse. You would have us bow to primitives? Vedrak snarled. I would have us survive, she snapped back. Jalen stood again. Every eye turned to him, some with hatred, others with grudging respect. You're afraid because you don't know what we've built. Good, stay afraid. But don't mistake us for conquerors. We didn't want this war. You brought it to our door. He let the silence stretch, then finished in a tone colder than ice. Now we're bringing it to yours. The council erupted, but beneath the noise, one truth could not be drowned out. Humanity had entered the war, not as prey, but as predator. And the galaxy had no idea how far Earth was willing to go. The council chamber had descended into chaos. Delegates shouted over one another, translators buzzing in dissonant static. The chamber smelled of fear. Ionized air from defensive fields, flaring in agitation, the acrid stench of alien pheromones seeping into the atmosphere. For the first time in centuries, the council faced something it could not categorize. Humanity was not obeying the script. Councillor Vedrak slammed his claw against the dais, demanding silence. We must unite the fleets, strike Earth before they strike again. And if they are stronger than you imagine, Shir countered. Her voice trembled but carried conviction. You've mocked them as primitives for centuries. Yet in a single engagement they have demonstrated power rivaling our greatest armadas. Vedrak sneered. One victory does not make them invincible. I will not cower before a feral world. All eyes turned to Jalen Carter. Calm, composed, he seemed carved from stone. He didn't raise his voice, didn't need to. Invincible? No. But relentless? Yes. You burned our colonies and laughed. You thought we'd break. Instead, we forged weapons you cannot imagine, tactics you cannot counter. You gave us no choice but to fight a war without restraint. He paused, letting the silence bite. That's what you never understood about humans. We don't fight to dominate. We fight to survive, and survival makes us merciless. On board the Indomitable, Admiral Amina Rourke received a flood of intelligence reports. Phase 2 was already unfolding. Human strike wings were cutting deep into alien supply chains, torching convoys that had gone unchallenged for centuries. She stood over a hollow table, displaying the spiral arm in crimson overlays. Target the nexus points, she instructed. Starbases, fuel depots, shipyards. Don't just cripple them, erase them. I want the Council to realize their empire is bleeding out before they can gather a counter-offensive. Her second-in-command, Commander Ellis, hesitated. Admiral, if we cripple them too fast, we risk uniting the Council. Fear can fracture them, but fear can also drive them together. Rourke's expression didn't soften. Let them unite. It won't matter. They've grown complacent. They fight for dominance. We fight for existence. That's why we'll win. The first broadcasts of Earth's retaliation reached the outer colonies. Images of burning council shipyards, shattered convoys, and terrified alien commanders filled the news feeds. For enslaved or oppressed species, it was unthinkable. Humans, the so-called Tier 2 civilization, tearing holes in the galactic order. Whispers became chants. In mining colonies and forgotten border worlds, species that had never dared to dream of rebellion now spoke the word aloud. Freedom! Back in the council chamber, Vedrak's fury grew venomous. Do you hear it? They mean to dismantle our order. If we allow this, the council falls. Every subject race will rise against us. Perhaps they should, Shir said softly. The silence that followed was heavier than any shout. For an Osari ambassador to suggest rebellion was sacrilege. But Shir's translucent eyes burned with conviction. You've ruled through fear and blood. Humanity is not the disease, you are. And perhaps they are the cure. Gasps rippled. Vedrak rose to his full height, claws unsheathed. You dare! Enough, Jalen interrupted. His voice cut through like a blade. This isn't about rebellion. This is about justice. Earth won't stop until the scales are balanced. And when will that be? Demanded another counselor. Jalen's eyes were cold steel. When you feel the loss we felt, when you remember every child you burned, only then will humanity stop. At that moment, another aide burst into the chamber, pale and trembling. Report. Admiral Rourke's fleet has struck the Calorian shipyards at Carthage. The yards are gone. 20,000 workers lost. A scream tore from the Calorian delegation. The chamber erupted again, but underneath the chaos, every counselor knew the truth. The illusion of their supremacy was gone. Humanity was rewriting the laws of power in blood and fire, and the galaxy would never be the same. The council chamber had ceased to resemble a governing body. It was a battlefield of words, accusations hurled like plasma bolts. Delegates stood on their tiers, voices cracking with fear or venom. Security drones drifted between factions, their energy lances humming as the tension rose toward violence. Councillor Vaidrak, scales gleaming with fury, roared above the din. This is no longer a negotiation, it is survival. Humanity must be crushed before their contagion spreads. Mobilize every fleet. Exterminate them root and branch. Across the chamber, Shir raised trembling tendrils. And if we fail? You've seen the evidence. Every time we underestimate them, we feed the fire. They don't fight like we do. They don't measure loss as we do. Humanity thrives in desperation. Lies! Vaidrak snarled. They are mortal, as we are. Jalen Carter rose slowly from his seat, commanding silence without shouting. Yes, we are mortal. And that is why we fight harder than you've ever imagined. You rule through fear of death. We rule through acceptance of it. Every human who falls becomes another reason to keep fighting. His words hung like a guillotine blade over the chamber. Even the most arrogant delegates shifted uneasily. Far from the council, Admiral Rourke's fleet drove deeper into enemy space. The Indomitable was a moving shadow, her squadrons fanning out like hunters through the dark. One by one, council strongholds fell silent. Stations cracked open, supply lines gutted, colonies liberated or left in ruin. Rourke stood at the observation deck, hands clasped behind her back. The stars glittered with indifferent beauty. Casualty reports? She asked without turning. Light on our side, Commander Ellis replied. His voice was grim. But estimates put alien civilian deaths at nearly 200,000 this week alone. The Admiral closed her eyes briefly. The number was a stone in her chest. And still less than what they inflicted on us at Europa. Ellis hesitated. Does that justify this level of brutality? Rourke finally turned, her eyes sharp as broken glass. They taught us brutality. We learned it because we had no choice. This war isn't about morality, Ellis. It's about survival. If we hesitate, we lose. And if we lose, every child left on Earth burns. He lowered his gaze, silent. The weight of vengeance pressed on them all, but none bore it heavier than she. Whispers of rebellion spread faster than council sensors could contain them. On mining worlds, oppressed species raised human banners as symbols of defiance. On trading stations, smugglers rerouted supplies to Earth's hidden allies. Even among council citizens, cracks of doubt widened. The image of council supremacy was breaking, and humanity's fire lit every fracture. In the chamber, desperation grew. Reports streamed in. Destroyed convoys, vanished patrols, colonies falling silent. The Threxians demanded harsher retaliation. The Calorians pleaded for reinforcements. The Osari urged restraint. Shir addressed the council, her voice trembling but unyielding. This war has revealed the truth you refuse to face. Humanity cannot be crushed. You mistake their resilience for defiance, their retaliation for savagery. But what you call savagery is survival. And survival will always outlast dominance. Vaidrak's eyes blazed. You sympathize with them? I recognize reality, Shir answered. Jalen's comm tablet pulsed with a secure transmission. He glanced at the encrypted text. Phase 3 begins. Stand firm. Rourke. He rose once more, voice calm, yet edged with iron. The war you started is no longer in your control. Earth does not ask for surrender. Earth does not beg for mercy. We will take our justice, piece by piece, until you remember every life you thought disposable. The council chamber erupted again, but under the shouting, one emotion bound them all: terror. Humanity was not only fighting back, humanity was winning. And worse, humanity was making others believe they could win too. The chamber of the Galactic Council was no longer the cathedral of order it once claimed to be. Holograms of burning worlds lit the air above the dais. Reports of shattered fleets and crippled supply lines scrolled endlessly across the chamber walls. Delegates who once sneered at Earth now whispered in fear, their robes disheveled, their voices trembling. No one dared laugh anymore. Councillor Vaidrak stood rigid, fury eating at him like acid. We must rally the armadas. If we let humanity continue unchecked, there will be nothing left of the Council's dominion. But his words fell into a silence deeper than space. For the first time in living memory, the Council's assembly, the galaxy's apex of authority, had no reply. Because another voice was already speaking. The chamber screens flickered, replacing charts and reports with a single live feed. Admiral Amina Rourke's face filled the projection, her uniform marked with the insignia of Earth Command. Behind her, the bridge of the Indomitable thrummed with quiet discipline. This transmission is not a request, she began. Her voice was level, cold steel wrapped in calm. This is a statement of fact. Your fleets lie in ruin. Your shipyards burn. Your dominion fractures. Humanity has struck back, and we will not stop until justice is complete. Gasps and protests rippled through the tiers, but none dared interrupt. You asked if Earth would kneel, Rourke continued. The answer is written in the wreckage of your armadas. You slaughtered our children on Europa. You believed the ashes of our colonies would break us. Instead, you forged us into something you cannot defeat. We did not choose this war, but we will finish it. She leaned closer to the lens. Her words were deliberate, merciless. You will know loss. You will know silence. And when humanity finally stops, it will not be because you commanded it. It will be because we decide you have suffered enough. The feed cut out. The chamber plunged into darkness. For long minutes, no one spoke. The council, the voice that ruled the empires, was silent. Delegates shifted in unease. The mighty Threxians hunched low, mandibles clacking in subdued fear. The Kelorians trembled. Even Vaidrak's voice failed him, words curdling on his tongue. Jalen Carter stood slowly, his shadow stretching across the floor. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but carried to every corner of the chamber. This is your moment of decision. You can cling to pride and be ground into dust, or you can accept what every world now sees. The age of the Council is over. The galaxy has changed, and humanity will never again be silenced. He paused, scanning the rows of once arrogant rulers. Choose wisely. Earth does not bluff. Beyond the Council's walls, whispers had already become declarations. Species long oppressed by Council rule rose in defiance. Human fleets moved with brutal precision, dismantling the infrastructure of tyranny. The myth of invincible overlords shattered. And through it all, one truth spread faster than fire. Humanity had not only survived the galaxy's cruelty, they had turned it back upon their tormentors. In the chamber's final silence, not even Vaidrak could find words. The Council, once a chorus of domination, sat frozen, stunned into stillness by the weight of Earth's brutal retaliation. For the first time in its existence, the Galactic Council was silent. And in that silence, humanity's voice reigned.